What led you to write your current book?
Um, I had my sister had a daughter who had reached dating age, and my experiences in life dealing with players and guys that were lying and cheating started to be the pattern that my niece had fallen into. And my sister really only had dated one person before she got married, so she didn't have experience with this. And she started asking me for advice on to help her daughter to get away from these guys and to know the signs. And then because we were constantly talking about it and I had so much knowledge in it, she said I should write a book. And I said, I'm not a writer. And I kept telling her to stop harassing me. I'm not going to write a book. And she would not let up. For 6 years. She harassed me to write a book. And so I started journaling because I thought maybe she just, I also used to vent to her, with her about the waitressing job that I had. And there was some funny stories. So I thought maybe she doesn't want to hear me complain. So I started writing down the stuff that would happen at work. And then I never even looked at the stuff I wrote, and she kept bugging me. So after 6 years, I went back and I looked at the notes that I had taken over the years. And I thought, like, maybe there is a book here. Maybe, I was naive. I lived in a small town and I moved back to the city, and I was waitressing. And one of the guys I worked with said, "You're way too naive." And he drove me home one day and he told me about this world of players. And if he hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known really like what could possibly go on behind the scenes in relationships and dating in this city world that I hadn't lived in. And so I thought, it's the same thing when people are going to grow up and they're going to start dating, and not everybody realizes the level of deceit that is out there in the world. So I thought maybe I should share. Just like the guy drove me home, he was the one that made me aware of what can go on out there. And I thought, people need to know this. That's what happened.
Cool. I think that's funny because most writers start out saying, I'm not a writer.
Really?
Most authors, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people who want to write, become this best-selling author never do. But I think it's mostly because nowadays people want to read something that, they just don't want to read. They want to get something out of it. And if you're writing just to write, no one cares. But if you have a story that helps someone get through whatever they're getting through, that's what causes people to read. So I'm glad you did write it, finally. So during what did you learn about you after these particular experiences dealing with these guys you were dating?
Well, what did I learn about me? I learned that, like, I grew up in a family that was honest and we just spoke our mind. And I learned that, like, people aren't like me and my family. People aren't honest and genuine, and they have like ulterior motives for what they're doing. And, it doesn't even, so I guess that's what I learned. Like, I can't judge people based on myself because the world isn't as honest as I am. And I guess I also learned to speak up for myself. When people come back into my life from that time, I don't think they like this version of me because I'm not a pushover.
Right.
I'm not like, I don't want to just be liked. And I don't want to be deceived. So I had to learn to have a voice and stand up for myself and not just believe people. And I got stronger and more trusting in my instincts and believing that when something seems shady, I've never been wrong. I've always been right. And I learned to trust myself.
cool. I think that's the main thing most people, when it comes to relationship problems, is they forget that the person you're dating didn't grow up with the same parents. And even if it
Yeah.
was the same neighborhood and you were neighbors, parents are completely different from one another. And how you grew up is not necessarily how someone else grew up.
Right.
So have you yourself forgiven these people for whatever they did specifically? Have you yourself forgiven them?
Yeah. I'm not sure, like, what. I'm not sure if why I did. I think, you know what, when you love someone, like I loved these guys, like what they didn't make me hate them. Like it hurt me, and I would always, like, I would still do anything for them if they ever needed me. There's something, like, when you love someone, there's always a part of you that loves them for the reason you love them. But I think, maybe it helped. I think it helped heal me, and not for me to have low self-esteem, was the fact that they all came back years later and wished they ended up with me.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of wish everyone that had their heart broken could have that experience, because there is a part of you that is like, aren't I enough for anybody? Like, am I that easy to just, like, walk away from? But also, I think people respect you less when they are able to get away with stuff. So anyway, the fact that they came back, even though I wasn't in love with them any longer, it at least made me realize I was actually special to them. They just couldn't change their ways.
Right.
So I didn't, yeah, I did forgive them. But you know who I can't? I find a hard time forgiving. And I used to always think, like, when you see those movies about people that were bullied when they were young, or bullied in high school, and then they're adults. I mean, they're fictional, and they see their bully, and even though they're successful, like, they still, like, they want to confront their bully from, like, childhood. And I always thought, like, seriously? And you know what, I find hard to forgive or let go of the hate of the people that bullied me as an adult at work.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Because I didn't love them, like, I guess, right? So these guys I loved, and just didn't work out, and I'm glad I'm not with them because they haven't changed. But people that I didn't love, and that that bullied me, and then any redeeming quality I thought I saw in them, I don't see in them. That I'm really trying to crucify that right now. So now I understand. Even though those movies are fictional, they're based probably on how people feel. Like, it's crazy, because you think it's easy to let go. They're not in your life. It's gone. It's past. But I don't know. I guess there's a part of you that wishes you stood up for yourself.
Right. Said something. Yeah. So
But it's hard when the back's against you, right?
it is. So for the readers who read this, what exactly are you hoping they take away from your experiences?
It's to offer insight on the experiences I went through, like the sexual harassment that I had at work. And it's to offer, like, just to, like, one woman at one of my book signings said she didn't realize she was in an abusive relationship until she saw a talk show, and that's what they were covering that day. And there was women on the show talking about their abusive relationships. She didn't even realize her marriage was abusive.
Right.
So if you don't, like, it's to create an awareness in people that might be in these situations and they think it's normal. Number one. And number two, it's just to, like, it's to forgive yourself, even if you don't get out maybe when you wish you had, or maybe you're in your 10th cheating, dealing with a cheater and a player. But just, it's to plant a seed that it is important to find your strength and stand up for yourself and just say, that's enough. You know, and it's hard to be alone. I wouldn't condemn someone. I would say I understand why people stay, but I want people to see that it's important to leave. It's important to stand up for yourself at work. It's important to find your inner strength and not let people walk all over you throughout your life.
I think one thing, because you said she didn't realize she was in an abusive relationship. I know some people either have parents or, aunts or uncles or grandparents who abuse their spouse. So they assume that that's supposed to be that way. So when they get in a relationship and the same thing is happening, they don't think there's anything wrong with it because they've seen a family member do it for so long.
Yeah.
And I hope those who do read your book realize that not only is it wrong that it's happening to them, but it was wrong when they seen it. And that I hope that if they get therapy or whatever the case may be, to step out of it. But it is, when you're so used to something, it is difficult to quit it, so to speak.
And it weakens you, right? And
Yeah.
so then your level of tolerance for it will become a habit.
Yeah.
It will be harder to have standards that you don't allow yourself to be treated like that the more it happens to you. So it's really important to see it and to not think, like my niece at such a young age, she was in high school, said, well, this is the best, this is all that's out there. I'm like, you're 13 years old and you've already settled for someone that treats you bad and is lying to you? You've already decided that at 13 years old.
Right.
That's crazy. And so it's really important to read, stories of people that realize they and just got their own voice and their strength.
That was my next question, actually. So did your niece read it?
Yeah. No, you know why? 'Cause she says she didn't read it because it makes her sad.
Okay.
That's life. So
is she doing better though, as far as
yes, yeah. She finally got out of that pattern of men.
Okay, that's good. I feel like I'm not saying there isn't, but it seems like there should be, whatever men that noticed their abuse and stepped out of it. I hope there's books out there for the boys to read, to realize it's not acceptable to do those things.
Yeah.
Because we're always so concerned about saving the women, but I always say, but if you teach the men, you don't have to worry about the women. And
I know.
to me, there should be so much more dealing with these boys on how to treat a woman. And I hate how fathers say, things like, oh, I don't really say anything because if he, gets her knocked up, I don't have to worry about dealing with the baby. And I'm like, but that's still wrong to tell your daughters one thing and your son something else. If you don't want your daughters living a certain way, then you need to treat your sons the right way to treat her so she doesn't end up with one of those abusive boys. And I really think fathers need to, no offense to the fathers out there, but I think they should do a better job in sitting their boys down and letting them know there's just a certain way you treat people, including women, and their abuse in any form is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So, somewhat off the topic, what was the most frightening thing? Because you said you're not a writer. What was the most frightening thing about your process of publishing this book?
Was that creative writing wasn't wasn't a strong point for me. Like, and English class, like I would say, like, you know, proper punctuation and all that, past tense, pretense, all the rules of the written English language. I write like how I feel. And so I didn't want it to sound amateur or immature.
Okay.
You know, I didn't want people to buy my book and it be like sound amateur, you know? It just, yeah, I think that's I wanted to still be able to get my story across and it be like my voice in the book, but I was hoping people wouldn't read it and be like, oh, this is so unpolished. This is so amateur. Yeah. That was a fear. And I
Did,
have a few kind of racy scenes, but I think, you know, like it's a part of our lives, like intimacy, right? And so, you know, we need to talk about it.
yes. I think if we spent more time not being so uncomfortable about the things that need to be talked about, a lot of problems would be solved right now.
Yeah,
But I think we cowered away from talking
yeah,
about things that need to be talked about. Especially, it's one thing if you're talking to a 5-year-old, but when you're adults, you know, it shouldn't be so difficult to talk about certain issues.
So
So,
I was surprised that even in my 40s, it mattered. It my it mattered if I was intimate with someone outside of a relationship. So it never goes away for women. Women are still judged even in their 40s and 50s.
well, the sad thing is, I don't know. I mean, how do I say this? Men are still, I guess, they haven't gotten used to women not being, you know, because there was a time when in like our ancestors, like thousands of years ago, where a man would get married just to say to have a wife, to have children, but it was okay for him to have not only a side woman but a side man, and that was considered acceptable.
Yeah,
But if she
yeah,
got on him, oh my gosh, she just sinned big. And even though that was
yeah.
ago, like thousands of years ago, it's still difficult for men to see women as their equal. And unfortunately,
It is.
I
It
really
is.
don't. I mean, just recent months ago, there was all over what you call it, Instagram. Ti, a rapper, was talking about how he um, goes to the doctor with his daughter and asks the doctor if she is still a virgin. And mind you, his son, who is younger than his daughter, is not a virgin, and he doesn't say anything. And it's like, and mind you, I don't even think he's 18, his son. So it's like, so you're okay with your underage son going out there, but you're having a problem with your daughter who's like I think 2021, and you're trying to make sure. But it's just that I don't know if it's arrogance. I don't know what it is. But I think it's sad that people still have that mindset that it's okay for a man to not be a virgin at marriage, but a woman better be.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't make sense.
And yeah, and I'm not promoting promiscuity because it's not my like I would rather be in a relationship, but we're talking like, you know, like there's times I was single 10 years and it, you know, when you're younger, it's a lot harder to like never, like not be in the embrace of someone or be kissed or have intimacy. I'm not talking about like that I'm promoting meaningless encounters, but you know, it's hard to be without it for years and years and years. So what is the woman supposed to do knowing that she's going to be judged for it, but how long can you live without it?
Right. I
And
think
so, and what about the women that these guys are sleeping with? What
Exactly.
about, so then they're now damaged goods and they aren't girlfriend material or wife material. I still consider myself someone that has just as much value as a woman that didn't sleep with you right away, but they just don't see it. So I think unfortunately, that's important for women to know, and to be the one that has restraint. If you know that you care about the outcome of being with someone intimately, and you know yourself as a person that it matters, if it turns into something, then it's on the woman to have the restraint, because you don't want to be the one hurt, and you're the one that knows how you're going to feel after, so you're the one that has to try to not take the risk.
Right. So one more question. What was the research for you on finding a publisher?
um One thing I did was that I studied theater at Ryerson University. So one thing I did was, like, I thought, why not reach out to a university that I went to? Obviously it benefits them if they have a successful author comes out of that program.
Right.
And one of the writing teachers linked me up with a professor that was teaching night school, who also had his own small publishing company, and he started working with me on trying to help me improve the writing myself. And we worked together, and he said he would decide after we worked together for a little bit if he was going to publish it or not. And we did an Indiegogo campaign, but I didn't raise enough money, so I just kind of continued on my journey myself. I sent out queries to a few agents and publishers in the States, and they were hooked on the story, but they wanted me to create a better manuscript, and I never matched the level that they were looking for. So then I found this woman that was, I don't know how I found, she came across my Facebook feed or my email, something. She was a writer, and she decided to start her own writing company, and she was looking for female writers to submit their manuscript. So I submitted my manuscript to her, and she edited it for me, and we published it together.
Cool. What's the name of the company?
It's Black Dynasty, but she's since, I think she folded her company, so now I own
Oh,
the rights to my book.
okay.
Yeah. I wanted to say back on what we were talking. I was working with a young 18-year-old. There's a few girls that are daughters of people that I've either worked with or friends with, that all are like, they're not getting involved, they're not having meaningless relationships, they're not sleeping around, they're not. So there's young girls today that are much smarter at their dating. And one girl even said it matters to her if the guy that she's dating, that she wants to get serious with, has slept around a lot. So she does hold men to the same standard that she holds herself. So I hope this new generation does keep coming up. Women keep coming up and changing that.
I hope, well, I hope men do too, because I don't believe in, the women have to hold a standard and men don't. I truly
I
believe
know,
men should hold the same standard.
themselves. Yeah. Well, that's going to require a strong Christian conviction to that draw, your carnal instincts, and not acting on them.
True, but I also say if what you want in your mate, you should be it first. So if you're a man and you don't want her, if you want her to be a virgin, shouldn't you be one too?
Yeah.
Like, don't expect your mate to do something you haven't done.
And whose job is it, do you think, to instill those strong moral values?
I mean, I would definitely say parents, because, you should lead by example. But I personally believe when you get to a certain age, you should just be responsible enough to, do what you expect. If you want someone to treat you kindly, you should treat people kindly. That should be something adults should be doing on
Right.
their own. Whatever I want from whoever, my parents, whatever I want from my children, whatever I want from my spouse, whatever I want from my future mate, whatever I want from my boss, whatever I want from my coworkers, I shouldn't even ask them until I've given it to them. And that's
Right.
something we should do as adults, that you should never ask anyone to give you anything you haven't already given yourself.
That's an excellent, excellent point.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this message.